Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next in our series of webinars that are dealing with how do we manage in times of radical uncertainty, and why is conscious capitalism and the approach to building businesses this way more important than ever. So today we have with us two guests who have had senior business responsibility for many, many years, bring a lot of experience to the table. Currently, we have Rob Connelly, who's the executive chair at Henny. He'll say a little bit more about that. We have Carrie Freeman Parsons, who is the um, chair of Freeman, one of the largest event organizing companies in the country. So, Carrie, Rob, maybe a brief introduction from each of you, and um, then we'll go from there. Carrie.
Sure. Thank you. So as you said, I'm chair of the Freeman Company, which is, we're in the event space. I'm a third generation member of the family. We're in our 98th year of business, privately held, family owned, and have seen lots of ups and downs. And I've had the opportunity to work in the business and now am chairing the board. So it's a little bit of a different perspective and super happy to be here. I've been involved with conscious capitalism for, I don't know, maybe almost 20 years, maybe not quite, in our early days. And it's been incredibly informative to me as I've grown as a leader. So super happy for the conversation.
Thank you, Carrie. Rob.
Yes, Rob Connelly, Executive Chair at Henny Penny. Henny Penny is a 68-year-old manufacturer of commercial kitchen equipment. So we make heavy equipment we make fryers and holding equipment and ovens for Chick-fil-A, KFC, McDonald's, all these high volume kitchens. And we became employee owned 10 years ago, which has been a great gift and a really special place where we are in that. I also, interestingly, have a connection to Carrie. Besides that, I've been involved with conscious capitalism probably since about 2015, and I'm currently on the board with you, Carrie and Timothy. But I was also president of NAFM. And NAFM is North American Food Equipment Manufacturers. And we have a show every other year, a big show, and one of our main partners is Freeman. And so we had an interesting time with navigating the pandemic with the show, separate of navigating it for Henny Penny and whatever. So anyway, it's great to be with you.
Thank you, Rob. We'll jump into that in a moment. I just want to again come back and set the stage a little bit, right? Like we are in a time of radical uncertainty, and whether it's the geopolitical situation and what's going to happen with the economy, what's happening with our supply chains, tariffs are on, tariffs are off, 90 days, what happens? Um, Nobody quite knows. In addition, we have incredible disruption coming to business and business models from technology, whether it's AI or quantum computing or blockchain or robotics or nanotechnology or biotechnology. We have a tremendous wave of change coming at businesses and how they're going to have to adjust to this. And nobody knows exactly what it's going to look like. So this radical uncertainty leaves us in a period where the only certainty is going to be uncertainty. And as I've been joking with the panelists beforehand, it's not going to stop raining. The uncertainty is not going to go away. The issue is how are we going to learn to work in the rain? Because that's the new reality is uncertainty. And what we want to do is sort of step back and say, listen, we think that businesses that have high degrees of trust, high degrees of worker engagement, and high degrees of psychological safety are going to be able to be more agile, more innovative, and more resilient than the organizations that are dominated by fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And for that reason, conscious capitalism is actually, and our approach is actually more important than it's ever been. And to make that point, we want to talk with leaders of conscious capitalist businesses who've been there and done that and say, hey, what did we learn from our experience in COVID of dealing with these things? And what do we think that means for us going forward? So that's the flow of why we're hosting the series and why we're here today. And you'll see that we're going to continue on this journey all the way to our Cincinnati event, which we're going to be having in September on the future of the conscious enterprise. And this is a red thread that's going to run through that and what we're doing with conscious capitalism over the next 12 to 18 months. So having said that, Carrie, you're in the event business, and along comes this thing called COVID, and you're sitting there going, live events, not a real popular thing at the moment. What did you do? How did you tell us a little bit about how that unfolded for you?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I was just out in Las Vegas not too long ago, and in the same hotel, had attended a conference, spoke on a panel, and was talking to a group of clients about, so what do we think this thing is, this COVID thing is? And while I was standing there is when I got the notification that one of our accounts, which is the clients we work with are trade shows, conventions, corporate events, exhibits, that they were fully open, ready to go. And they decided to close, to not open their event. And if you're familiar with that, millions and millions of dollars that companies spend to participate. And so we all got back on our planes. We're like, oh, this isn't looking good. And then it was literally like a knife that was falling that we were trying to catch. It was just, events closing right and left. And do we have an event? Do we not move an event? What do we do with the things? And I know, Timothy, you and I have had a conversation about that goes into a lot more about that. But really what we understood is that we needed to immediately address the concerns as it relates to no business for a period of time, that which was uncertain. And we needed to support our people, and we needed to support our customers because they were going through a very uncertain time. And so that whole process and really went from, it was 18 months, really at least a year. It wasn't until the vaccinations came out that some cities started to open up and having events, but it takes time to plan. So, 18 months, we basically went with very, very little revenue from lots of people, and had to furlough and things like that. So definitively the principles of conscious capitalism and how we went through that and how we leaned on our culture in a significant way was just incredibly important. And definitely, if we didn't believe in culture before, as a result of what we went through with COVID, and then how we came out so much stronger on the back end, we're for sure believers now.
Cool. Now, I want to bridge over to you, Rob, because just talking about your role as, you're running an organization that's planning an event. And how did you deal with that? And what was it like working with Freeman during that period where we're going to have a big event, we need to move it, we need to do it online? Oh, what's going on?
So, yeah, I'll talk about my role within NAFM, and then separate of that, we can address kind of what I was doing at Henny Penny. But I think we had, NAFM is an association, and so the main thing that NAFM, one of the main things is it has a show every other year, and it's a large show. It's not one you can just pick up and have anywhere, and you can't just change the year. And so we had planned a show, and all the, and as Carrie knows, and most people that are involved in events, planning for 20,000 people to be at a city, and all that's involved in that, and the hotels and the logistics and the show floor itself, and is a lot. And we had a show that was planned in February of 21 in New Orleans. And so we had done lots of work. Everybody had. And so we were looking at it for people that were going to be signing up for this show was like in June of 2020. And most people were just trying to figure out how they were going to keep their business going and what was happening. We knew it was not going to be a time when we could have people sign up for the booth in June of 2020. We felt strongly that the show could be something, and again, we didn't know how long the pandemic was going to be. We were, thinking, maybe 6 months or something. We
Yeah.
were naively hopeful, but we thought the show could be a great uniter of bringing hospitality back. So we really wanted to have the show in 21, but we knew we couldn't really have it in February of 21 in New Orleans. And so we ended up moving it. And so we canceled New Orleans, which was a whole unwinding, and then relocated the show to Orlando in August of 21. We thought for sure, hey, what city would be most likely to be open? Orlando. And that was the time we did it. So we then planned a whole nother show. The thing we were focused on was, though, can we, um, this could be a real uniter. But we also had one bright line that I saw was critical, and that was we cannot have a failed show. Like no matter what, even though we want to bring everybody, we don't want to have a failed show. And what I mean by a failed show is, the exhibitors will come. They're going to pay, they're going to be there. But if no one comes, if none of the attendees comes, that is a failed show. If all your exhibitors are talking to each other, and you can't risk that because, as Carrie knows, if you have a failed show, it's hard to recover from that, no matter what the reason is. So that's where we just kind of went through this process of how do we bring this as a uniter, but how do we not have a failed show? And in the end, we ended up probably the worst case we could do, but we had money not driving us in that we then planned the show in Orlando. And then about 3 weeks before, when people were having to think about their next big cost, shipping all of their show stuff, we ended up having to cancel it because there was no confidence that people were going to come. And we refunded everybody's. We were able to do that because we were financially strong. We had a rainy day fund, and we were probably not going to ever get any more rain than that. And and everybody understood. I think it ended up being the most positive thing for NAFM that we ended up doing it that way. And then we had a really good show in 23, and we had a great show in 25. And so that's just kind of how we walked through that. But it was crazy time.
Rob, I'm particularly curious about how you worked with Freeman, because yeah, it was a dramatic time, and here was a partner in building this. How did that work? Pivot, New Orleans. Let's go to Orlando. Oh no, let's not have it. Talk about
Yeah.
Freeman as what was it like as a customer of theirs or a client of theirs?
For us, for NAFM, well, I got to tell you, all the mechanics and our partnership is with the NAFM team and Smith Buckland, who is our partner in putting together the show. And I don't really know how the details of all that went down. I just know our team was working very closely with Freeman, and that it was just an amazing kind of process, what we ended up having to do in planning a show, canceling that show, planning a new show in another city, and then canceling that one. And all I know, and I don't know, Carrie might have more of understanding of this. One of the things we were adamant and tried to do was tried to make everybody we were as whole as they could be. We refunded all of our exhibitors and whatever who are members of our association. So we tried to make everyone whole, and we're just kind of making the best decision we could each day and where we what we were trying to do.
So
Carrie,
Timothy,
this
I can
happens multiplies by 10, right? Or
oh
100 or
no,
1,000.
3,000 events a year. Yeah. And so all of our customers are, trying to figure that out. And so there's so much detail. We don't need to get into all of that, but I do want to stress how important those deposits that you make with your stakeholders are every day, because when it came down to it, so if you think about the show that I told you about, that was all set up. We had a year worth of planning. We had spent lots of money getting it all set up, and there wasn't going to be any billing or any for like how do you charge for services that have been delivered when the customer who paid for those services isn't going to get the benefit of that experience. And so over and over and over, and there are many times that we're like, we have to be made whole. We have to be made, even if it's just our cost, we have to be healthy in order for us to support you and going forward. And almost all of our clients were like, we get it. We understand we have to, work together on this. But then, as I said, we furloughed lots of people because again, we didn't know, they had no revenue coming in and things. And, but when we were ready to bring those customers or those team members back, we would go to our clients and they'd say, because we have people who've worked with our clients for 15, 20, 30 years. I want Ann, I want Bob, I want my team back. I'm like, okay, we will bring your team back, but we need you to help pay for them. We need you to fund, and our model isn't that you charge for account management. It's kind of bundled into the whole process of how we work with clients. And so again, to a client, they're like, this is important to us. We get it. We will help you get through this. So, we had to, with our team members, of course, and with our customers, with facilities, with, all these things, just that constant focus on making sure that you're making decisions in the best interest of your stakeholders in everyday decisions, when you need them, they will come through for you. And that, at least that was our experience.
So what I love about that, and I think the lesson here is the time you invest in building trust and relationships with your stakeholders in these times of stress and uncertainty becomes really important versus taking a very transactional approach. You take a transactional approach and then it's just a transaction. There's no loyalty. There's no sense of we're in this together. But when you've invested in this way of doing business, then you start to see the benefit when you start to get into these really, uncertain, weird, unique situations that we haven't seen before. Now the relationship starts to really pay off, and that's critical.
Yeah. And the honesty around that too, because I think that was the other part. We were just like, we're going to show you our numbers. We're going to show you. And even when we started building back with our clients, there's like, okay, are there things that we can stop doing that we were doing before the pandemic? And you might not know how much these things are costing us. So let us show you, we're going to show you what it costs to produce your event, the direct costs, the indirect costs. We're going to tell you where the biggest labor usages are, because that's one of our most expensive line items is labor. And again, it was really, that's why we all came out of it more healthy on the back end, because like, what we weren't pressed to conserve the way that we had, we were during the pandemic. And so we just made lots of decisions working with our clients and like, you're right. Why are we doing this? Let's use that resource for something else. It's going to provide more value. So, and it's scary, to show your, work to your client. And also there were times that were like, and your inefficiency internally, said more politely, is costing you a lot of money because of all of our redos. So how do we get to where we're working together more efficiently and effectively, because that's going to benefit you? And in the past, I think we would have just like, whatever, we'll work it out. And it's, I think our relationships with our clients are stronger than they've ever been.
Amazing. Building transparency and trust actually pays off. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, I want to pivot over to you. You're an employee-owned business. um, you're suddenly looking at your industry and going, hey, what's happening in the restaurant business these days for on-premise growth and everything else? Well, tell
Yeah.
us a little bit
Yeah.
about the story and how it unfolded over at Henny Penny.
Yeah. Um, well, to me, overall, I would start with this. I think in uncertain times, there's some normal human behavior that happens. And the first thing is people then want to know the future, of
Mm,
which, it's funny, the more uncertain, the more people want certainty and they want to know the future. And I think to me, there is this, and what are people looking for? I think they're looking for some stability,
mm,
however they can get it, and some kind of hope of, how this is all going to be. So, and I think in most crises that you would say, whether it was a pandemic or the Great Recession or 9/11 or anything, they kind of all, to me, have this same arc of like this
mm,
happens and there's disbelief. And then it keeps going, and then almost it becomes normal. And then probably in the bottom of it is you think it will always be this way.
mm.
And that's usually the point where you start getting to the point of like, and we had happened in the pandemic, I mean, people, conventional wisdom at one point was like, we will never shake hands or hug ever again. There will never be another buffet. And people were all, absolutely, I can't imagine it. So anyway, I think what was critical is, is helping people, uh, have some understanding of where we are, and that one, I thought this is not going to be forever. We will thrive again. I mean, we've gathered together to eat, to drink, and whatever for thousands of years. It's not over. We're in a place of where it's not happening right now. But we are going to get through this, and we are
Yeah.
going to thrive again. And if somebody was like, well, it's going to be the end of the world, it's like, I don't think so, but I don't need to plan for that one. I mean, like, and so within that, we just, I remember well, March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declares the pandemic, a global pandemic. Wasn't even sure really what that meant other than it sounded like this is going to be serious. We got together as a leadership team on March 13th. And we got together and we said, here's what we're going to do. We don't know how long this is going to be. We don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to do these things. We're going to take care of each other. We're going to take care of our customers, and we're going to take care of the community. And I want us to look back 6 months from now, or 9 months from now, or whatever it is, and be proud of the decisions we made. And then we just started jumping into it. It was like on that Monday, we in Ohio, we listened to our Governor DeWine. He came on at 2 o'clock. It was wine with DeWine, and and we'd get new things, and they'd tell us, okay, we need to take temperatures of employees, and we'd look around and say, does anybody have thermometers? How are we gonna? But we just took every action, and then tried to provide and communicate a lot with folks to say, we wouldn't say things that we don't know. Like, we don't know how long this is going to be, but
Mm,
this is how we're going to approach it. And we're financially strong, and the last thing we're going to do is impact our people. But we're going to do whatever, we're not going to let the company fail. And so we just
mm,
made through that decisions. In April of 2020, we were off 80%. Basically, our business had stopped. And we not only had days no orders, we had days where orders were being canceled. We were negative. But we decided, and again, I knew Chick-fil-A and McDonald's and KFC were going to thrive someday. So we were just started building bridges. And fortunately for us, um, our customers came back sooner. And by the end of the year, we were off about 20%, but through it, we did not lay off anyone. We did not affect anybody's compensation or pay. And we actually ended up giving a bonus because we had the ability, we had some extra profit. I don't say that like self-righteous or we were better. It was just we could do that, and it worked out that way. And I think it was mainly having a long view, and we were financially strong to be able to do that. But we used every tool we could. We did PPP. And there are many companies like Carrie's that there were different dynamics. I mean, if we were a restaurant and we had nobody coming to the restaurant, we could not have done what we did, but we were able to do it. But I think it was that taking a long view, we were strong, and we doubled down on our values and believed we would be in a better position to thrive. So we
Well,
were fortunate.
I, I love, Rob, that you started with the end in mind, like what's going to make us proud on the other side about how we lived this. And I think that's so important because it goes back to your values and your purpose and saying, if we lived these things through this time of uncertainty, what are we going to be proud about in terms of how we acted and the decisions we made? And now let's go into what decisions do we have to make today? What is, and I think that's so important to begin with that kind of mindset of, if this is a testing time, we are
Yep.
being tested. Are we up for it? And if we are, how do we want to be seen at the other side?
I think that fundamental belief that it would be better someday and we're going to take care of each other in getting there was something that I think was the foundational of it being. And then I think this other thing, and let's keep moving. There's lots of
Mm,
reasons why we could stop.
mm,
There's lots of reasons today or then where you'd say, I don't know what's going to happen. You can be paralyzed. But I think it was
mm,
important to say, like, hey, the future is going to be okay. It's going to thrive again. It's uncertain now, but what do we do to keep moving? Because the world is going to keep moving, and we have an opportunity to move with it or just to be here. And I think it became an energizer for the team to be, let's focus on what we can do.
yeah. And Carrie, I'm curious for you, and in that first few weeks, that first month, when you look back, were some of the seminal things that your executive team talked about that laid the groundwork for how you were going to frame your reaction during that period?
I think the amount, and it's basically the same as what we're doing now, the amount, how much we trusted our people with the truth. And, just to, we don't know when this is going to be over. This is what we have to do. We know we will be back. To Rob's point, people have been getting together, meeting in marketplaces, since biblical times. So we knew, but that really understanding that in addition to, of course, their work, all of our lives are being impacted, right? Is my kid going to go to school? Can I go visit my mom in a nursing home? Can I go to the grocery store in the time slot that I'm allowed to? What can I do? And I think I remember hearing Bob Chapman speak after he wrote the book with Radish Society about Everybody Matters. And that was a point where I was like, we can never forget that when someone comes to work, they are bringing their whole self to work. We may be asking them to compartmentalize, and you have to be able to, but someone's coming in with fear or anger or whatever, depression. They're coming in with different things. There are things going on in their lives, and we can't solve for that, but we can certainly not make it worse by being ambiguous and not moving forward and being confident and controlling the controllables and saying, this is what we can control and this is what we're doing. We cannot control this, and this is what we're doing. And just trusting people with that level of truth. So, and that really became foundational to how we've continued to go forward in these uncertain times of, what do the tariffs mean? What does this mean? It's like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about, what are the things that we buy as a company? Okay, let's let's understand that. How could it affect our customers? So our customers who maybe their sector is really being impacted by tariffs and they participate in events. And so what is that going to mean to that event? Is it going to be smaller? Is it going to be bigger? You know, we don't know. But if we did know, what would we do? So let's plan for that. And, you know, we're not going to panic. We're not going to panic here. And I totally agree with you, Rob, that, you know, panicking or standing still are non-negotiable.
Yes.
Those are death threats. They're death knells, you know. And, you know, I think you also have to be smart about your business and know your business and know your stakeholders, know what is non-negotiable as it relates to your values, your people, your stakeholders. What do you want it to look like, as Rob said, on the other side? And, you know, just keep moving. That's your choice, is to keep moving forward in the way that is going to get you to, you know, where you want to be. And listen, leadership is super hard, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that as it relates to, because I think that's the other thing that we learned through the pandemic is leadership is hard anyway. And leadership is hard when personal, social, professional, everything feels like it's global, environmental, like, you know, and so you know, it's so incredibly important that we are equipping our leaders to be able to navigate through really, really challenging times.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Carrie,
go ahead,
I think
Rob.
that brings up a good additional challenge that I think we have now, had during the pandemic and have now, and that is the whole social media, cable, whatever. And I think the reason why we can provide a stability and kind of talk through where it is, people are getting so bombarded with things like during the pandemic, like it might be over tomorrow, or it's going to last forever, or all of this because they want engagement on their platform or whatever. And I'll remind people, if they're interested, to say, like, you know, when I see somebody frantic, I'm like, well, here's a couple thoughts for if you want to. One, I would get off Facebook so much. I would stop watching so much cable. I would, you know, get out and listen to the birds and contribute and go to work. But I think it exacerbates this, you know, the many of the things we're getting faced with exacerbate this feeling of instability. And that's where, again, and that's why it's not like, hey, I can talk to our team once. It's like, oh, next week I got to remind, like, hey, remember this, you know, this will be better. This is things that have happened to try to help people. There is a lot of noise, and the noise gets amplified by all of the stuff we're being forced with, and it makes people even more frantic. And it's just another element that I think from leadership you just need to recognize. And then how can we become a calming in this storm they're surrounded in?
I love that. And Carrie, I want to go back to your point about leadership. I mean, again, it's not, you know, leadership doesn't happen in a vacuum. You know, you've been developing leaders, you've been promoting leaders in line with your purpose and your values. And what do you see as some of the things that, as you go forward, that you see as an opportunity in these circumstances to continue to develop your leaders in their ability to be responsive and empathetic as we move into yet another round of uncertainty?
I think one of the areas that we've really been focused on is around the health of the team, the senior leadership team. And when, in my experience, when decisions have been hard, or I've noticed there's politicking going on, or, you know, you think there's decisions in the room and then you find out that actually things are being decided somewhere else. It's usually because the team dynamic something has happened there, right? There's unintended values, there's insecurity, there's aggression, something going on there. And so as a senior leader, really, really, really paying attention to how well the team is working together and how well they are supporting each other, and ensuring that they understand that no one wins if we don't win as a team. They're all interdependent. And so they have to be mindful of the other leader. So that we've been spending a lot more time ensuring that the team dynamic is healthy and calling out bad behavior, calling out when, and not in the room necessarily, but meeting with our leaders and saying, you know what, you kind of were reactive there. What's really going on? So that's been one big area that we've been paying attention. And then we've also been providing more coaching for our senior leaders, because they do need a place to go that feels safe to vent, to to ideate things that they're thinking about, or to when they're having challenges with teammates or people that report to them, and really just making sure they're trusted resources that they can go to be able to talk things through, and so that they're less reactionary. And so those are kind of the two areas that we've been paying the most attention to, is because kind of as senior leadership goes, that's what happens through the rest of the organization. And then the third part is, again, through demonstrating through action. And so our work happens a lot on the weekends. People travel a lot. If you think about an event like NAFM, it's a however many 4 or 5, 6 day move in, 3 or 4 day show, move out. People might be away from home for 2 weeks at a time. Stressful. It's fun, it's exciting, it's great, or people wouldn't do it, but it has its own shadow side. And so really empathetically understanding, like when we say we want you to take time off, or don't feel like you have to be accessible at 10 o'clock at night checking your email until you go to bed, we're on our senior leaders all the time about, therefore, do not do that. You have to model the behavior and what you believe for your people, or they won't totally buy it. So, listen, I'm so proud of our leaders and how they, especially during COVID and other times, are like, I think you need to tap out. I think why don't you take a rest? You take this week, you take these days, you do whatever. I've got it covered. And now when we see that in the organization as well. When people have, sick kids or caring for parents or whatever, their team rallies around them and supports them in order to be successful.
Yeah. Rob, from your point of view, the role of leadership and the development of leaders within your organization that sort of prepares you to be able to deal with these things when they come up.
Yeah, we again have a different model, being employee owned with a really long view. And I would explain it this way. Many companies today, I would describe them, if this was the real estate business, they are house flippers. That's how they've learned their trade. They're optimizing for the short term, whether it be their career or the company that they plan to sell or whatever. And I'm not even saying house flippers are bad. I'm just saying house flippers have a model, and it's a short-term model. And I view it that we're helping, there's a lot of talented people, but they've come and learned their trade as house flippers, and we're building a cathedral. And that is something, you would never put a 50-year roof on a house you're going to flip. Doesn't make any sense. So we spend a lot of time helping people see what are we doing, and what is very different for people typically is a long view. And then, when you have a long view, it changes a lot of things. And then the other is that, we deeply value relationships, and our employees are our owners. And so when you have that combination, it's and then I would just add to that something that I think is maybe helpful for people to think about as we're acting, is having people say, to compare that, like, is that a role model? in how you were dealing with whatever? Or did you just get it done? But if, you know, to compare, because role model then is typically more of an outside look at it and say, you know, if you had a tough issue with an employee or whatever, do you feel like that was a role model example for you and that person, or the way in which we did anything? And so I try to have that as be just another frame of reference that we do.
Yeah.
And I think the last part of this to me is in leadership. You know, I believe, like, if you took all the CEOs, if you took all our words and you put it in a word thing, 90%, we all say the same thing. You know, it's authentic, it's transparent, it's whatever the buzzwords are. And here's the big difference to me is, like, what are you actually doing? What are you doing and don't say stuff, because you know, we see the whole spectrum. You see people that say this stuff and do actually the opposite. And then you see people that say it, but they don't really mean it. They're just kind of, that's what they're supposed to, you know, they're smart enough to know they're supposed to say it and whatever. To me, it's like, you know, well, are we actually doing it? Or don't say stuff, because people today don't believe anything about anybody because they've been, you know, lied to so much. And I think our credibility, I think the challenge is having any credibility in anything that is an established organization, because people just think, I mean, you know, I could offer somebody a $10,000 bonus and they'd probably, you know, some of them would be like, well, I haven't figured it out yet, but I know you're screwing me. And, and I don't mean that as far as, I just say in our, you know, in our society, we have people that have been screwed and they're very skeptical. And then we continue to have people just make up stuff. So I think there is, you know, just a grounding and saying what we're going to say doesn't mean we're going to actually be able to do it exactly. We're going to try, we're going to do it. We're not going to say something and not back it up with actions. And I think that's a critical element.
Yeah, I mean, this is really all about building trust, isn't it? I mean, you're building trust with your people over time. You're building trust with your stakeholders over time. And then when the crisis comes, you stay trustworthy. You both pull on the trust that you've built, but you stay trustworthy. And that consistency of, yeah, I know Rob, I know Carrie, they're going to show up this way. Their businesses are going to show up this way, and I can trust them. I can trust your word, and I can trust that, is so critically important. And what I find fascinating is in this discussion, well, you guys have both said it, and I like it. You know, you got to stay focused on moving forward. You got to keep trying things. You got to keep moving. I got it. Now, what's fascinating about this to me is at no point have we talked about the financials. At no point did either of you say, you know, and profit went down, and then it came up, and then, you know, it all worked out in the end, and the balance sheet was fine. We didn't talk about that. What we've been talking about is the people, about the customers, about our suppliers, and it's such a different discussion when we're in this conscious capitalism bubble. And I'm going to now push on that a little bit, because the thing that I find fascinating is people turn around and say, well, make the business case for conscious capitalism, you know, like, show me the business case. And I say, well, you know, these companies were agile, they pivoted, they were resilient, they came back stronger, and they go, but make the business case. And it's like, it's almost like, to you guys, it's almost like a dumb question. It was like, well, no, this is the way we do business. But I'm wondering, Carrie, when somebody says, well, you know, so what's the business case for acting this way during COVID? I mean, how do you respond to that in terms of versus your competitors?
Yeah. So listen, the financials are important, you know, and I think clearly, if we don't have a financially viable business, and you're not going to thrive, and you're not going to be here for the future. And that's just a given. And so, you know, sometimes like, oh, well, how come, you know, we're not a retirement home, you know, we're not a place that you can just stay until you want it. Like, we are a meritocracy. We are driven to continue to outperform, but we want to outperform so that we can continue to invest and give back to our people and grow and serve our clients, right? That's the the intention around the growth. And again, we're not an ESOP. We were at one point, we're not right now, but we're a 98-year-old business with our family name on the door. So we are not just in it for the short run. And we have to be financially viable, and we want to win, we want to be successful. And I think, you know, it is so hard because it's like, well, so how much does culture compare to, you know, contribute to your bottom line or whatever? It's like, it's sort of like saying, how much does health contribute to your overall well-being, you know, or what contributes the most to health? You know, you could say, well, you know, if you sleep more, but it's not just about sleep, and it's not just about eating, and it's not just about exercise, and it's not just about stress. It's kind of all of those things contribute to well-being, and that well-being contributes to a hopefully long and healthy and fulfilling life. And you have to believe it. You have to believe that it's true. You can't blink when you're challenged. You have to authentically believe that going about your business in a way that is benefiting all your stakeholders, that is, you know, purpose driven, that you have authentic values led leadership, you know, that is the formula. And if you believe it, and by the way, you have a good business, because you could have all of those things and have a business that's in a dying sector. You have to be smart. You have to have a good strategy. You have to know people who implement the strategy. You know, it's always sort of like at Freeman, that's first, culture is second. It's like, no, you know, it really is. You can call them equally yoked if you want. You have to have both. And that is what contributes to the long-term outcomes from a financial perspective that indicates health in an organization and rewards the people who are, you know, creating that value.
Yeah. Well, let me ask, did you bounce back faster than your competitors?
100%. 100%. And, you know, are in better shape as a company than we were before. And I would say that because as a result of scarcity, we had to figure out how to do things differently. And we had to make some tough choices around, you know, not having as much warehouse space, and could we centralize inventory, and can we, you know, we were kind of forced into making some operational decisions that have enabled us to be healthier coming out on the back end. Investing in our customers, investing in the industry, doing the research, doing all those things, 100%. We're radically flourishing today. When I say radically flourishing, it's, you know, we're growing, we're thriving, we're, you know, excited about the work again, and it's hard. It's really hard, but you know, our customers are doing well, the industry is doing well, and we are doing well.
Cool. Rob, no, you're not only a conscious capitalist business, you're an ESOP, and you know, like, oh my God, that makes no sense. Why the heck would anybody want to listen to you talk about the business case for conscious capitalism, doing business the way you do?
I don't know why anybody would want to listen to me about anything, but
oh,
I think that so I think this is a really it's a finessed conversation when you talk about numbers and people. And I would say the worst example, which I hate, is the numbers are the ones running the business. It's all about the numbers. And I will say this, for any finance people are on here, I'm not talking about you because you're on here, but for the finance people, here's what I would say about the numbers. The numbers have no values. The numbers are the numbers. They look at it as far as there's not people, there's not the experience, there's not a lot of things associated with numbers. And if you're just purely away from it, it's an abstract. You don't know the business, but you know the numbers. To me, that is the worst way to run a business. Now, within that, I'm not saying numbers aren't important. You need to have a thriving business. Like we can't do. We're trying to positively impact people, starting with our employee owners and the community, and do it by impacting our customers. Well, we start with we want to be a best place to work, and how do we create that? But then it's paired quickly with, and we've got to be growing and thriving, because you can't be a best place to work. And if you're shrinking, shrinking is no fun, and you have no resources and opportunity. When you're growing, you have opportunity, resources, and you can impact each other and whatever. So we also believe in a meritocracy, that we need to do well so we're able to impact each other. So numbers are really important, but I would say this, I'm a strong believer. I come from it where it's people first and then the numbers, not the numbers and we figure out the people. And so, and I'm corny like this, you know, our customers will come in and I'll tell them, I believe that our people are first, and we're going to take care of them, enable them. We're helping them with their well-being. We're going to give them the spaces to work and the training. And you're not number one. But if I do that, you will be happiest with us, because they will be equipped to solve your problems and to be better than if we're back here, like just managing our business through the numbers. So I would just say, as a part of leadership, where if you look back at the worst examples and where people left their values, it was because the main control was a numbers person.
Mhm.
And they were disconnected from the people and the business and the heart of it. And that's where you've got to not have numbers be the guiding force.
Yeah. Well said, you know, are the people at Boeing listening? Having said that, Rob, when you came out of COVID, what were the numbers? Were there good numbers coming out of COVID? And how do you describe how you bounced back or came back in terms of the financial performance?
Yeah, we had to close up shop. No, it was remarkable. We were ready when our customers started coming back in 21. We were ready because we had not laid off anybody. We had not let our supply chains stop. So our equipment you could get it in 4 to 6 weeks. Our competitors were like a year. So I would say when you look at our share price that is for our employee owners, it's from then to now, it's probably up 8 times. I would say our volumes basically are probably about 70% more than they were when we came into COVID. So we were able, it worked well, and I'm really proud of that. But if regardless, I think we ended up it worked. And to me, it just underscores, it's not always the case, that if you can focus on your people, the numbers, and you're not thinking about the numbers, but they will, the numbers will, you can work.
Yeah, well, I love that number. You know, our competitors were taking orders 12 months out and we were delivering them in 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, what do you not understand about that, right? I mean, from a business case perspective, in terms of what that meant in growth. So we're going to be wrapping up here. And as we wrap up, Carrie and Rob, I'd love you to think of one piece of advice for the CEOs on our call today. As you're thinking about dealing with this radical uncertainty, what's one thing you think CEOs need to be thinking about in the frame in which we've been discussing this for the last hour? Carrie, what's your one piece of advice?
Ooh, one piece is hard. I think one piece is really making sure, doing your own gut check. You know, how are you feeling about things? Are you saying, is your say-do gap there? Are you, to Rob's point, are you saying one thing, but you're actually doing something else? Are you making sure that you're really checking in with yourself? And that would probably be first. And then the second is to trust the power of human potential when harnessed and moving forward towards good things.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Rob, your advice. Radical uncertainty. How do we deal with it?
Yeah, I think I always love it when they're like one thing, and it's kind of like, is it strategy or culture or whatever? And I'm always like, it's like if you got
All
one
right,
thing,
two things.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
If
the
it's like you
two
want
wings of the bird. Okay.
which do you want, food, air, or water? It's like, well, I think we need them all. I would say this: if you had one thing that I would just have you go deep into, is just care. Just care for your people, care for your business, just care and mean it. People know when you don't mean it, but just care.
Love it. All about caring. When people feel cared for and they feel their work is meaningful, you'll get the best from them. And if you get the best from them, over time, you'll get the best people on your team. And if you're getting the best from the best people on the team, your business will win. And it's as simple as that. Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you for joining us. And for those that are listening to this, I want to remind you that we are going to have in Cincinnati on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of September, we're going to have a national conference. And the theme on the 24th will be the future of the conscious enterprise. And for the CEOs that come out to our conference, the next day, Friday, you get to join the team at Henny Penny. We're going to go and do a visit with the executive team and the facilities at Henny Penny, and you get to see firsthand how this plays out. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and we'll look forward to having you fill in our survey and tell your friends all about why they should listen to this one. Thanks so much.